Radio Netherlands, the Dutch international service, presents Vox Humana. I'm Michelle Ernsting, and this week's program, the Mozart Marathon.
The opening, he really announces himself. It's like a gesture.
The program features Gary Goldschneider, former child prodigy, currently a composer, musician, and the author of a series of best-selling books on astrology.
And then little, another one, and then little.
On January 27th in Amsterdam, Gary played all of Mozart's sonatas during a 6-hour piano marathon to mark the 250th anniversary of the composer's birth. And I got to sit in on one of his practice sessions.
And you can hear even the old harpsichord somewhere there in the background as he's doing that, and Salieri turning around with anger on his face, and Mozart just totally charming everyone. So this is the opening of the C Major Sonata Kerschel 279, composed in Salzburg when he was about 18, probably around 1774. Let's talk preparation. Sometimes I'm teased into thinking that we who love music so much only play concerts as an excuse to make the practicing necessary. It's the practicing we love. That's what musicians really love. The performance, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. But we're not big show-offs who are getting out there. This is a life work. This is serious study. And the way we study is to practice. So if you're going to do a Mozart Marathon, it becomes the most wonderful excuse to practice the 18 piano sonatas of Mozart again, to revisit them. And it's in those hours and hours and hours alone that we really learn something about the music. Now, if I did a marathon 15 years ago, that was my take on Mozart then. I'm doing a marathon now, it's a different take. Hopefully, I'm growing and maturing and learning more about the music. I begin usually for a marathon concert as early as a year before the concert. With this, I began 6 months before because I know the sonatas pretty well. I feel very much at home with them now. Not like when I was little and my hands hurt when I played Mozart. Now it's much more fun. But I don't peak. I don't really get to the point where I'm ready to play the concert until 1 week or sometimes even 1 day before the concert. You know how marathon runners never run the marathon before the marathon? They run maybe 14 miles, but they never run the whole thing before. And we have to leave it to that day. You can't practice performance. The only way you can perform is to perform. We have to leave ourselves open to this day. My God, is it a good day or a bad day? Is Mozart going to be there? That's what it's all about. If I play this Mozart Marathon on his birthday, 250 years since Mozart's birth, on the actual day, the 27th of January 2006, here at the Odeon in Amsterdam, if he's there, if he drops in, I'll be very happy.
How are you going to know that?
I'll feel the hair on the back of my neck go up, probably something like that. I'll know if he's there. He may only drop in for a minute and just have a listen. He doesn't have to say anything. I don't have to see him, but I'll know he's there. And then we move on to the second of the 4 concerts, and that's made up of 4 sonatas. The first one of the 4 is written in 1775. I mean, the Americans are getting ready to secede. This is the mind-boggling thing. When you think of what this year meant in Europe, with the Enlightenment or what it meant in America or in terms of the French Revolution, which was coming up in about 15 years, then it acquires a whole different significance. Well, I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where I spent the first 20 years of my life. When I was 2 years old, my mother discovered that if she read me a poem, that I could recite it back to her word for word. So they put me on the radio on WCAU, which was the CBS affiliate in Philadelphia. And from the age of 2 until I was 7, I recited poetry of Byron, Shelley, Keats, Wordsworth on the Horn and Harder Children's Hour out of Philadelphia. So in a way, I had a similar background to Mozart in that I was discovered to be a prodigy, and they sort of showed me off and that kind of thing, which led to certain unpleasant things in childhood, a feeling of being a freak and exhibited to people because of some crazy thing that I could do. But at the same time, I was an only child and therefore was cut off socially from a lot of interaction with other kids. And I like to feel in my adult life, particularly here in Amsterdam, that I've begun to make up for that.
What is your state of mind as you sit down to start a marathon? How do you prepare yourself mentally for that moment?
I can't really tell you, it's a wonderful question. But there's some things that just defy description. In general, if I were to sit down and play a concert, I would want so much energy from the universe to stream down into me through my hands that I could give out to the audience. But when I put that into words, that's not really it. It's being relaxed and being open and letting the music come through, letting the music play itself. We don't play the music. The music is played through us. We are the instrument. The piano is not the instrument. We are the instrument. And on that instrument, the music gets played. But if you said to me, by whom? I would say, as any Buddhist would say, by whom? I mean, who? Who plays and who is played? And who are we anyway? We're creatures that seem to be changing all the time, constantly shifting like a kaleidoscope. So music is the one area of life that teaches us all of these things. It's incorporeal. You can't grab it. You try to grab it in your butterfly net, it's gone. So in a way, we have to be humble in front of it. We have to pray and hope that when we play, the music will be there. And it won't just be notes pushing down keys, getting it right, and all the rest of it. Unless it's inspired, and I mean divinely inspired, it's not worth anything. Now, this business of divinity, I believe very much in God. It's not a religious God. It's a very personal God. But if you asked me about the music of Beethoven, Mozart, Bach, Schubert, Brahms, I would say that it is the music of spiritualized masters who were sent here to speak the word of God. That's how I feel about music. And when we look at the tradition, for example, of Indian Yogananda, the great teachers who came here to share with humanity, Mayor Baba certainly, were most often talking about writings. Where are the spiritual writings of the West? It's been more or less assumed that we don't have them, or maybe it's the Bible. But you know something? I think that our spiritual tradition in the West has nothing to do with writing. I think it's the music. And I think our spiritual masters, instead of being Mayor Baba and Osho Krishnamurti, are Mozart, Bach, Beethoven, and Brahms. That's what it's all about.
As a fellow composer and a musician, what intrigues you most about Mozart?
Well, it's really hard to mention yourself in connection with someone of that caliber, you know? I mean, we're all pygmies compared to Mozart. Mozart was a total freak. There was only one of him. There are millions of us, but there's only one of him. And he was so unusual that he isn't typical of anybody or anything in the world because he was absolutely that unique. He was unique in his attitude toward life, which wasn't always that serious. He liked to have fun. He liked to make scatological references, as the movie pointed out, Amadeus. He liked to be extremely naughty, but also I wouldn't even care to, as a psychologist, because my background is primarily in psychiatry, to do an analysis of his character. It's something that is, in many ways, completely different from his music. His music is healthy. I don't think his character was that healthy. But the music has such a health in it that, again, we're reminded of the fact that we have the artist, like Van Gogh, and then we have the paintings of Van Gogh. We have a man whose name was Ludwig van Beethoven, and we have the music of Beethoven. And when we say Beethoven, we don't really refer to the man at all. We refer to the music. Do you like Beethoven? Doesn't mean do you like the man who lived, you know, back in those days. It has nothing to do with him. And if you ever wanted to find a more pathological case than Beethoven, maybe it was Van Gogh, I don't know. But we're not dealing with that, and it's not our business or our job to really deal with it. We simply have to understand the music, as the music and those paintings are the epitome of health, as I see it, in art.
I'm going to engage your astrological side and to look at the birthday, January 27th. What does that say to you about the man?
Mozart's birthday, the 27th of January, falls in the week of Genius. That's the period at the very end of January. And his day is called the Day of Precocity. So these are people who obviously pick things up very, very quickly. There is no mind that works as quickly as the mind that manifested in that week and in particular on that day. But in addition, they manifest these tremendously facile and nimble mind feats that they can accomplish at a very early age. So he was very precocious in that respect.
You said you felt like a freak, and before you referred to Mozart as a freak.
Well, it's a little bit like being an alien. You're like E.T., you know, you're something just that people are amazed at, and you seem to be coming from another world. So when you begin to think of yourself that way, then there is only one great challenge as your life develops. And I can't speak for Mozart, but I can speak for myself. And the great challenge for me was to become a human being. Every human attribute, every daily task, chopping wood, carrying water, lighting a fire, growing my own food, caring for my children, having children. I have 7 children. I think all of it can be traced to a desire to be, and here I'll use the word, the big N word, normal. That's what you have a craving to be, simply like everybody else. Alleen gewoon, as we say in Dutch. Just like everybody else. And I think that part of my life was what was crying out to be expressed. So in Mozart's case, I don't think it ever happened. I think he remained what he was till the very end of his life, which was cut short. But who knows, if he had lived beyond that age, he might have very well developed more normal kinds of lifestyle patterns. Although I doubt it, but you don't know. Mozart is music for our time. We live in the Aquarian age. This is the Aquarian composer. You never know from one bar to the next what's going to happen. His music is completely unpredictable, and I love that about it.
And by playing 6 hours of it, and again starting with his early works, working all the way through, it's almost like you're playing the life of a man.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, in the same way you would walk through a Van Gogh retrospective, he did all his paintings in 10 years, basically, and from 1880 to 1890. And when you walk through the Van Gogh Museum and you hear people talking, they're talking about how all of this work could have gotten compressed, and they can't believe the dates that are on the wall. But you walk through the life. You start with the potato eaters, you visit Paris as he did, you meet the Impressionists, and finally you wind up in a cornfield in the south of France where he blew his brains out. So, I mean, it's so dramatic to present the life of a composer. We're not just talking about music here, we're also talking about the life of a real human being, and Mozart did have a fabulous life. The piece you're going to hear now was written in Paris in 1778, so around the same time as the Sturm und Drang, very exciting A minor sonata. In a way, it's the shadow piece, or to put it another way, this would be the sun, and the piece in A minor, the Sturm und Drang, would be more the unconscious and the dark side of Mozart. So if that was the dark side, this sonata in A major is the light side, and it falls in his middle period. Mozart's development is almost the inverse of Beethoven's development. As Beethoven went on from the first symphony and then, well, he really announces himself, you know who he is. But they get more and more complex. They're very contrapuntal. With Mozart, it was exactly the opposite. They start complex, and they get simpler and simpler and simpler. He keeps leaving things out. And even more significant than what he included was what he left out. It's almost like Bach revisited, but a different kind of Bach, a Bach with schwung, because Mozart studied with Bach's son. And Johann Christian Bach basically looked on his father as a great musician, but an old fuddy-duddy who was hopelessly out of date. You know, he was into the Enlightenment. He was into all of these new ideas. So I think when you play Mozart, you have to realize that as his development moves on, it becomes simpler and simpler. You hear K545, and you think, it must be his first piece. It's not. It's one of his last pieces. But only Mozart could develop that way in direction. As he went on, the gem of classic music, because he was a classicist, got polished, ground, refined, perfect works.
What do you think Mozart would have made of a marathon?
I think he would like the idea of all of his sonatas being performed at once, because if you do one, that's a miracle already on a concert program. People are so afraid of playing Mozart, they won't even do it because, you know, we used to joke and we used to say that Mozart's music is too easy for the beginners and too difficult for the professionals. A lot of professionals won't touch his music, but once we really get into it and learn there's nothing to be afraid of and we can have fun with it and really enjoy it, then I think doing a Mozart concert of 4 sonatas is a great idea. But Mozart would love the idea of people being able to listen to all of them. I think he would like that in one day.
And he had some extraordinary spectacles, operas that were 6 hours, that sort of thing. I mean, it seemed to me he liked that.
Hey, look, when he grew up, it was putting the handkerchief on the keyboard, and he had to play blind. They blindfolded him so he couldn't see the keys. He was a show-off. He was a virtuoso. He was so cute. It was Mozart wagging his behind and saying to everybody, "Watch me do my thing."
What do you think people first thought when they heard that rondo à la Turque?
I think they flipped. I think they just went crazy. They thought, classically speaking, the Turks were stopped at the gates of Vienna. But when this music played, I think the Turks entered the city, and it was just overwhelming.
And how do you feel after 6 hours?
Good. I feel filled with energy, ready to go out with friends and party and have a nice meal and drink a glass of wine and just enjoy myself. The music gives you energy. It never takes your energy away. You're not about to fall asleep or anything like that.
Gary Goldschneider, composer, musician, and best-selling author on astrology, allowing us to listen in while he practiced for the Mozart Marathon, 6 hours of sonatas to mark the 250th anniversary of the birth of Mozart. I'm Michelle Ernsting, and you've been listening to Vox Humana. If you'd like to comment on this program, you can write to us at Radio Netherlands, Box 222, 1200 J.G. Hilversum, the Netherlands, or email us at letters@rnw.nl. If you'd like to hear the program again or find out more about Gary, have a look at our website, rnw.nl.